everybody and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. I'm Sam and today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite things about FPL, the differential. It feels so good when you pick the right differential and they go on a really nice run of form, because at that point it massively boosts you in terms of your mini league. And for me, I always think that it's the differentials that will end up winning you the mini league. Everybody is going to own the likes of Salah, the likes of Bruno, the likes of Kane. Everybody is going to be on those big hitting players. But if you can make the little players, the ones that might not cost you a huge amount of money, although some of them will, but they're very lowly owned, if they then go on this perfect run of form, that can be the boost that you need to really succeed in FPL. So I've picked out 5 differentials who I think could be decent picks in this early part of the season. Now, of course, they won't necessarily be the right differentials to have all season. They might not be the right differentials for your team in terms of your budget. But I've tried to cover lots of different budget areas in picking out these differentials. We've got a premium one in there, we've got a couple of mid-price ones in there, and we've got a couple of cheap ones in there, in order to try to make it as easy as possible to fit some differentials into your team. In this early part of the season, everyone will try and cram in as many of the popular picks as they can. And that, of course, is a great strategy in terms of just getting off to a good start. But having 1 or 2 little gems in there who might just make the difference to you in the early part of this season could be just what we need as FPL managers. So we're going to start with a player who at times last season wasn't necessarily talked about that positively from an FPL point of view, or indeed from a footballing point of view. Pepe at Arsenal. Now coming into the game this time around at 7.5 million. So he is in that kind of mid-price midfielder bracket with a number of other players for competition and a number of other players at the same price point as him who are proving to be more popular than he is at the moment. By that I'm talking about the likes of Greenwood, Mason Mount, those kind of players. But Pepe comes in at 7.5. He's owned by just 3.6% of the game. And on the screen we've got, courtesy of our friends at Fantasy Football Scout, his heat map from last season, which shows his positioning, and of course on corners we can see there. But we can also see the stats from last season. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that he only played 1,612 minutes last time around. Very few games fully started for him, just the 16 across the Premier League last time around, but did get 10 goals and 3 assists in that period, as well as 4 additional clean sheet points. Now for me, Pepe becomes interesting when you start to look at the underlying stats from the latter part of the season. Between game week 20 and game week 38, he registered 91 FPL points, which was among the top 10 for midfielders last time around. He also averaged over the course of the season 6.92 points per game. And as a result, at 7.5 million, those underlying stats look fairly decent. He was 5th for goals amongst the 7.5 and under midfielders last time around, and 2nd for goals in the box across the same platform, with 10 of his goals coming from inside the box, all 10 in fact coming from inside the box. Only Gundogan actually managed more shots goals scored from inside the box than Pepe did last time around, and even then it was only 1 more. He had 11. 48 goal attempts for Pepe last time around, 39 of those coming from within inside the box. When we compare that to our other Arsenal players that are available in the slightly cheaper bracket with Saka, he had 61 attempts, but he did play over 900 minutes more than Pepe did last time around. So when we consider the difference between the minutes that Saka had and the minutes that Pepe had, Pepe's underlying stats actually look fairly good in terms of the number of opportunities that he was getting. 7 big chances for Pepe, again just 2 less than Saka, and when we take into account that minutes per big chance ratio, again Pepe's stats looking quite good. Had a goal conversion rate of 20.8, which was 7th for the 7.5 and under million midfielders. A goal involvement of 50, which was more than the likes of Son, Salah, Bruno, all of the City players, all of the Chelsea players, in terms of those forward thinking players anyway. An XG last season of 5.81, an XA of 1.57, so not so good on the kind of creating opportunities and the assisting. An expected goals from on target of 6.83 and an expected goal involvement of 7.38. He was Arsenal's 2nd highest goal scorer last time around, Lacazette managing 13, and he and Aubameyang tied with 10 each. Now, of course, Aubameyang has taken a move now from midfield into the forward position again, making him less attractive to me as an FPL asset, because less points for goals, and of course loses that clean sheet potential bonus point as well. When we have a look at the goal conversion rate at Arsenal, Pepe also registered second best, just behind Lacazette in first. So I think when we're having a think about Arsenal players, and the fixtures look good, they're buying well this summer in terms of having signed Ben White, which will make them defensively a lot more solid. I think this might be a positive season for Arsenal. Smith Rowe and Saka looking to be good picks. Pepe as a real differential could just be somebody that might be worth investment. Fixtures don't look too bad either for Arsenal in this early part of the season. Another one, again, we're in the premium price tag for this one, and it's Sadio Mane at Liverpool. 12 million he is going to cost you. So again, he is being avoided, I think, because everybody is trying to own Salah. In comparison to the 0.5 price difference that you've got to pay between Salah and Mane, everyone is flocking, unsurprisingly, to Salah. And we have a little look at Mane in a bit more detail then. Owned by just 3.4% of the game currently. He was 9th last season for XG underachievers across the whole division, so was unlucky not to return more goals and therefore not to return more FPL points for his managers last time around. He was also 3rd for XG amongst midfielders last time around. Only Salah and Bruno had more than him. So in terms of his actual XG, promising, 3rd for midfielders, but because he was so high on the XG underachievers list, it suggests that there really should have been and could have been a lot more for Mane last season. He was also 3rd for XGI amongst midfielders. 11 goals, all came from inside the box. It is also interesting to note that he did play 200 minutes less than Salah last season. So, of course, in terms of game time, and some of that was due to COVID-related illnesses, we are going to see less in the way of underlying stats for him potentially. So when you level that out per 90, it makes for a much better and easier comparison. 94 attempts for Mane, last time around, 3rd best. Minutes per touch was better than Salah last time around, 1.6 to 1.7. 61 chances created, which was more than any other Liverpool player. 11 big chances created. Salah had 12, so again, not much in it given the time difference between what they played. He was 2nd for goals at Liverpool with his 11. Of course, Salah smashed it with 22. Top for assists at Liverpool, also with 11. 27 big chances, 28 headed goal attempts, which was top of Liverpool as well. So I think what we can see from Mane is that he is going to go massively under the radar because, of course, Salah was almost Golden Boot last time around and had a really good season, although by his standards, not maybe as good as we were anticipating from an FPL perspective. But with Mane, he will go under the radar, and if he gets off to a good start, which the underlying stats suggest that he could, and his pre-season form suggests that he could, he will be a massive differential. And of course, he is going to come in at 0.5 cheaper than Salah. So if we can see a return to the old of Mane, I thought he had a particularly poor last season. I wasn't sure if his head was elsewhere, if he was already thinking maybe about an exit strategy. Maybe he'd won everything he wanted to at Liverpool. But he seems to have come back in good form in this pre-season. And the underlying stats were a lot better than I thought they were going to be when I looked at them. So maybe Mane could be a differential. The question is, do you want to spend 12 million of your budget on differentials when you could go with the cheaper option like Pepe we've just mentioned, or indeed Greenwood at Manchester United? So he's coming into the game this time around at 7.5 million, owned by just 3.3% of the game. And what we have here is one of the new Fantasy Football Scout radar graphs comparing him to his Manchester United teammates. So Greenwood is there in green, we have Bruno Fernandes in the kind of blue-black colour, and we have Marcus Rashford in yellow. Now, of course, the news about Marcus Rashford needing surgery will have an impact on Mason Greenwood's game time potential in this early part of the season. So he was 4th for goals scored at United last time around with 7, beaten by Bruno who had 18, Rashford who had 11 and Cavani who had 10. But when we look at the minutes again, much like we saw with Pepe and we saw also a little bit with Mane, he had over 1,000 minutes less than Rashford did last season. So he had 1,824 minutes less, and then obviously Rashford had over 1,000 more than that, over 1,300 less than Bruno Fernandes. And of course, you got to pay substantially more for those. Rashford coming into the game at 9.5, so that additional 2 million, and Bruno coming in at a whopping 12 million. So again, you got to pay substantially more to own those guys. He was 3rd for minutes per XG at United last time around. He was 4th for XA, just Bruno, Shaw and Rashford above him. Tied 4th for goal attempts at United last time around with 6 across the midfield midfielders, at 7.5 and under with 69. So again, everything is going in the right direction when we look at the underlying stats for him. 6th for big chances across the midfielders under 7.5 million. With Rashford out for 12 weeks, Cavani surely can't play every game for Manchester United given his fitness. Fantastic set of opening fixtures up until game week 7. Average points of 4.1 last season. I can only see that going up this time around. I'm surprised that more people aren't jumping on the Greenwood bandwagon. He is a proper differential and could be one that really does bring in those FPL points for us as managers. Another one then, this one is a particular favourite of mine, and I have been banging on about him for a couple of weeks now. It's clearly not having much notice taken of it because he's only owned by 1.2% of the game, but this one is Dele Alli at Spurs. Now, I have said a couple of times I wouldn't be bringing him in for game week 1 when Spurs play Manchester City, but for game week 2, 3 and 4, in particular when Spurs play Wolves, Watford and Crystal Palace, these could be the perfect fixtures for getting on board with the Dele Alli bandwagon. Now, what we have on screen here, again, thanks to our friends at Fantasy Football Scout, is the Dele Alli heat maps over the last 3 seasons. And you'll notice that there are significant differences because of the number of minutes that he played. So in the 2018-19 season, he made 17 starts for Spurs, 1,391 minutes. And in that time, managed 4 goals and 3 assists with an XG of 3.85, an XA of 1.82 and an XGI of 5.67. Compare that to the 2019-20 season where he got 14 starts, 1,245 minutes, 4 goals and 5 assists. XG very similar to the season before, 3.58. XA again very similar with 1.98 and an XGI very similar again, 5.56. So those 2 seasons fairly consistent, although game time was limited across both of them, not necessarily playing the number of games that we would have wanted to, particularly as he was significantly more expensive during those seasons. This time around, in the 2020-21 season, he only made 3 starts. His minutes totaled 316. Ridiculously low number of minutes, and of course in 316 minutes he got no goals and no assists. His XG was 1.33, his XA was 0.74 and his XGI was just 2.07. Really negative results for him in the 2021 season. But of course, massive changes at Spurs, new manager who seems to be working really well with Dele, lots of positivity coming out of the camp when it comes to him. Even chatter about how he might even play in that number 10 role just behind Harry Kane if he stays at the club, or behind the striker. If we don't have a striker, might even play up top in that striker position. He has scored goals in pre-season against both Colchester and Milton Keynes Dons. I think he could be a real differential for game week 2. He's a player that is on my target list for game week 2. His link-up play with Son in pre-season has been phenomenal. And I think you could do far worse than going with Dele Alli from game week 2 for a couple of weeks. Now, this last one is the cheapest one that I'm going to offer you, and potentially also the most risky. So, Ait Nori from Wolves, owned by just 1.7% of the game. Last season, he made 1,403 minutes for Wolves, averaging a touch every 1.3 minutes. He had 26 penalty area touches, 15 goal attempts, of which 6 of them were on target. So there was some attacking threat from Ait Nori last time around. He's now signed on a permanent deal. Of course, last season he was there on loan. Made 24 appearances over the course of last season and did score a goal against Crystal Palace back in October of last year. Generally plays as left back or left wing back for the club. Now, of course, we have a new manager coming in at Wolves, and in an early part of pre-season we saw a lot of game time for Ait Nori, and the Wolves chatter rooms were going bonkers about how he might be the next big thing at the club. The new manager is kind of known for his development of attacking defenders. When he was at Benfica, he had João Felix and he also had Grimaldo, both of which he really worked on and became fantastic options as attacking defensive options for the club. And this is what we were kind of thinking would happen with Ait Nori. And in fact, during pre-season, he has looked, if you've watched the games, like Wolves' best player in the majority of those fixtures. However, a little word of warning with him. During the last pre-season game, he was replaced because Adama Traore was back, and it saw Ait Nori get benched. Now, that could be a little issue because, of course, they have Marcel as well who can play in that position. So when Traore came back, he took his starting lineup place and Ait Nori sat on the bench. Did come on as a substitute It's possible that there's just game time being given to all players in pre-season. Of course, there will be rotation around pre-season. So he is one to watch, but the fixtures for Wolves look quite nice. I think he's one that in game week sort of 3, 4, after that Spurs fixture in game week 2, you've got the potential to go there. And with a 4.5 million defender, if he is going to get regular game time, we can see from the heat map from last year, he will be attacking and therefore could be a great differential option. So those are the 5 differentials that I've got for you today. Some of them real premiums, some of them in that kind of mid-price bracket, and then one really nice cheap one at the end if he gets the game time. All of these could be the differentials that we need to make sure that we have a good start to the season and get up at the top of those mini leagues as quickly as possible. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you've got a differential that you think can rival mine, leave me a comment in the description below. Thanks, guys.